All right, a couple quick tips when building out framing with 80/20 framing or other extruded aluminum type framing.
Howdy, welcome back to my channel and my video series on building out a DIY expedition camper. On to video number 71 and moving on to generally some camper building tips, and this could be for all of you doing a project of this magnitude or like this, and also some tips on building out cabinetry with 80/20 framing and especially for drawer slides.
Hey, I'm down here in the bowels of making the cabinetry, putting all of my cabinetry framing together. I want to show you another little tip here. So one is making sure things are level, and how do you do that? And particularly in a camper that isn't necessarily sitting level in some way. So what I do, one of my little tricks is to use a little tiny level meter. And this little tiny level meter is only a couple inches square by about an inch in depth. It's got a magnet on one side, and it's even V-angled so it can accept pipes and so forth. It sits nice and level. As you can see right here on this aluminum framing, it tells you the degrees that this is off right here. I haven't leveled this one. This one's only entered temporarily, and it's up at an angle, right? And what I do to make sure my level is level is this one I just put in, and so it looks level, right? Up, 0.1 degree or 0 degrees. So let, a tenth of a degree off. But what I do is I put it basically in the center of the camper, and look how the center of the camper is level. And if we look down at this right here at the center of the camper, you'll see actually the camper is leaning a little bit right down to the passenger side here by about 0.6 degrees. So when I set this cabinet framing here, I want it to be the same. I want it to also go down ever so slightly on that side. And so if I do this, I just simply adjust it till I get to basically that same equilibrium, and now I'll tighten it. Now we know that this piece of framing right here is level with the center of the floor. And by being level with the center of the floor, I know that everything now is in sync. I keep everything in that same synchronicity, so it's all level to the center of the floor, side to side. And then also front to back. Front to back is a little more challenging. My back of the camper sets up, even with the added weight so far. So if you go back to one of my videos on building out the subframe or attaching the camper or the height of the camper, all of those mention that a little bit, how the rear of the camper actually sits up about 3.5 inches taller than it was supposed to. And it's now settled down about 1/2 inch to almost an inch. So it's not quite as up high, but that still equates to about a 3.5 degree rise to the back. So that'll keep settling down a little more over time as suspension gets worked, and I get a little more weight in the back, which I don't have a lot of weight in the back on this camper, but my whole water system is over the axles. All my batteries are over the axles, and none of that, of course, the water tanks aren't full yet. The batteries aren't installed in that location yet. They're just temporarily sitting in stacks at the moment. And so they'll be installed here over the next few days. But anyways, that way, that'll start leveling it out a little more as they get this weight towards the back here. Anyways, for now, this is how I go and do it. So it's one little quick little tip trick. And so there you go. What I can do here too is also just make sure it's level. This is going to be a drawer slide mount. Is I can also turn it this way, and I can see that right here I have actually a 0.3 degrees of tilt going this way. But it's pretty darn level. 0.3, not 3 degrees, but 0.3, right? So another little trick that I use, other than this nice little level meter, which is pretty rad. Like I said, it's even got a magnet on one side, but that's nice when you need to stick it to side of something, have it sit there. One of the other tricks is measuring. When I go to check my distance, I can see right here exactly 11 inches between here and here. And so then what I want to do is do the same over here, is take it to exactly 11 inches from this to this. Now I know that these two pieces here, this one and that one, are in synchronicity. They're in a line with each other. And the reason why I check that is before I bolt these down is so I know they're exactly in alignment in parallel, because this is also going to be drawer slides. For the small storage drawer, it's going to be here, and also the one that's going to be in here. Now what I'm going to do before I finish bolting these down, these of course going to have a top piece going to carry over. I'll make sure that these are all vertical as well, the same with the rears, and my cross brace that's going to be in here for the drawer slide mount, and to tighten these together will also be make sure that it's level and straight as well. One of the things I do, it's another little trick I used, as you can see from my air conditioning compressor mount, I actually took this T-frame and completely butted up right against my frame here for the air conditioner compressor. So I know I've got my air gap, that's all separation and vibration, but by putting this T-stopper up against there, I can also set this T bracket right up against this one here, up against this corner. Now, because this corner is exactly 1 inch by 1 inch, and this T-bracket is exactly 3 inches wide, this piece right here, which I know is straight, and I know that T-bracket is also butted up against this, because I measured all out and this was cut in place exactly in that spot. Now I know that these two pieces are exactly in alignment, because this is exact alignment and these only can slide over up against and butt up against this piece, and those are exactly the same dimensions. So by checking these dimensions and keeping them consistent throughout, and using the framing or the connectors in the framing to create a stop point, right, of the framing, so it can't move in that direction. You know that when you hit there, okay, I got my dimension. I don't even have to measure this out. I measure it to make sure, but then that confirms it and checks it and holds in that position. So it also means that if one piece ever loosened up, one of these bolts ever loosened up somewhere, very unlikely, they're all well tightened down or will be all tightened down before everything's done, that if one loosened up, it can't move at least in one direction. So they all support each other with stability in all directions. But now I also have it locked in. This piece of framing is locked in with this T bracket or connector, all the way butted up against that corner there. By being butted up against this corner here, now this piece can't move this way. So I now I've got that locked in. It also sets the exact dimension for this piece. And now I can set my cabinet framing slide. That's going to be a piece going across here, and that'll tie this piece and this piece solidly together. It'll create my slide mount for the small short drawer is going to be here, and the longer full length drawer that's going to be in here. So it'll be a slide mount for both. This is still not locked in. This will be locked in. But one thing I like to think about, particularly when it's going to be a part that's going to be subject to something else that has to be built around it, such as with drawer slides. I use the 80-20 framing here to be my drawer slide for this drawer. It's going to be in here. It's going to slide out this way. So slide mounted here and here. And there'll be a slide mounted here and here for this other piece that's still being built in right now. So one thing I like to think about is how this is all going to go together in the future. So what I like to do, because there's drawers going to be in there, I'm going to have drawers made up, right? I want to make these dimensions as easy as possible to remember or to write down. And being that we in the US like to work in fractions instead of whole numbers by using the imperial system versus the metric system, it makes it a lot harder. So why work in fractions when you go to have your drawers made and have to go down to 1/16 of an inch, you know, to make sure they're accurate? So I just keep whole numbers. So right here, I'm just lining up to his back wall exactly 15 inches on center with that drawer slide in this drawer slide, which is also effectively the same as the one back here, so I can order two drawers of the same dimension. I'll then replicate the same for this cabinet here to match up with this one. And one thing I'm thinking about here is, instead of making all the drawers exactly the same dimension, I'm making them all a little bit different. Reason why is because let's say you're putting in something in one cabinet, just a little, or one drawer, and it's a little too small, you'd have a larger one. Or you go into a larger one and it's a little too big for what you're doing, so you go into the smaller one. And so you obviously have different size things, so why make all the drawers exactly the same? Yes, there's a uniformity in the way it looks, but by going with the slightly larger one in the back, slightly smaller one, and then even smaller ones in the front, the visual appearance from walking in will go small, large, bigger, and so it should look effectively the same as it goes through your eyes, right, that perspective. Either way, it's going to be a slight difference, only by about an inch in each one, so it's really not going to be noticeable. But that also keeps the weight distribution on the bench here even distributed across, so there's not much of a span where the weight's going to be distributed. I'll have another post right here that's going to come up like this post, and then of course the drawer slides will line up with that. So just like I did over here. And so that way my weight is equally distributed across all three of these. The spacing between them is fairly equidistant, a little bit off, as you might be able to see larger, medium, smaller, or small, right? And then also, because this one's not as deep, it lends itself better to a less wide drawer, right, for smaller things to go in there. And I may even stack two drawer slides in here where I can have two drawers in the height, right? And I think that's what I'm going to do for those smaller drawers in there, for the smaller things. Do the same over on this side as well. And so you'll see another tip in here, and that is, how do you really organize all these different pieces of this extruded aluminum that you're using? Well, one is, like, if you look back here, I have all my extruded aluminum. You can't tell it, but all my extruded aluminum is laid out in little piles back here by their size, keep them the same, or by their type. Some have a smooth face or a solid face versus an extruded face, or one for a captive nut, and they're all by size, and these all for this area here, right? All these ones laid out here are for the benches. And then over here, I have my other ones on top of the inverter here laid out for these drawer slides. They'll go into this cabinet and this cabinet here, since those are the same length. So that is just another tip to help kind of manage and keep things together. And right now you can see I'm still wrapping up plumbing, so I have my plumbing fixtures all lined up here by dimension, by type, and so forth. Another dimension and type over here. Got some plumbing fittings and water filters and things here that are getting ready to go in. These extruded aluminum pieces here are for actually this piece as it builds up. And then I have some more plumbing fittings and pipe over here and some electrical fittings right now. It's a little bit disorganized right now, but you know, as I get things put installed, because I got so many different things going on simultaneously, but as I get things installed, right, these things will all go away. So each set of pieces or components will stay near where it needs to be for that thing I'm working on, right? So this is my way to keep it organized. Also some tools over here, kind of all laid out, a little hard to see behind the box here, but that way I can keep things kind of organized and together for the tools I'm using for what I'm doing at the moment. So anyways, those are a few little tips here. Hope those help. Get those built and in, and that'll finish up the benches in, and then I can start building out the upper cabinets over the kitchen and also over the bed area, and also the final one really in the bath area over here, which is a closet. Also holds the toilet and shoe storage and some other things like that. And so I've got a lot to do, but let's get going on it.
Yeah, there is a lot to do, including modifying the camper box mounts, as well as wrapping up the plumbing system, and also resolving the check engine light that's been persistent since I picked up the truck brand new from EarthCruiser. So I finally resolved that, and also starting the installation of the big electrical system. So thank you so much for watching, subscribing, and do sharing. You can certainly pull up all of my videos on YouTube and also on my website, VanTripping.com.